Evening and welcome to Probably Being Awake. My name's Ben, I'll be your host. I want to talk a bit about equity and how destructive it is, and I've got a perfect metaphor. I've made many videos about how it can destroy Western democracies, and bear in mind, equity is not equality. They're very different things. Equality means everyone can get to the same place. Equity demands everyone finishes in the same place. So the metaphor I came up with was Usain Bolt. Now, in a world where equality reigns, we have meritocracy. A meritocracy is essential, really, for it doesn't reward meritocracy, isn't developing, and it doesn't give people the reason to develop. Because being rewarded for your merits is something that is pretty serious, and it does have a real effect on how you feel about the next adventure you take, the next step in your career, the next relationship move, whatever it is that you get reward from merit, from what you do, and you get an output, has a meaning and a purpose. And what you get from equity, which is whatever your input or output, your result is the same, is meaningless. And it can only be achieved in a government that doesn't have a free-thinking people and they aren't allowed to make decisions for themselves. So the Usain Bolt example, well, he's the fastest man in the world. So under equality, he has the merit to hold all of the records he has. No one can beat him. But under equity, everyone in the world who can stand on two legs could equal his time in the 100 meters. Every single person in the world. The thing that equity would have to do is the equitable government or state would have to enforce that every person was put as close to the finish line as they needed to be to finish in exactly the same amount of seconds as Usain Bolt. So if you can imagine the whole 8 billion people in the world, that's 8 billion different positions in the 100 meters. But everyone would need that to finish at exactly the same time. Your nearest per person might take nine and a bit seconds from 2 meters or 1 meter, or even half a meter, I think, or less, whatever, zero-sum game that. But everybody wins. And this idea, everyone gets a medal, everyone gets clapped for showing up. No, it's not. It's nice. The idea behind it was nice when it was an idea. But now that we're trying to enforce it, it takes everything away from achievement and those who win. And it also makes competing not a good thing. Whereas developing a competitive nature, developing the ability to compete with inside your own team while being a team player and working towards your team's victory is the ultimate purpose, the ultimate desire, the ultimate fulfillment. And you can play, your team can be your family, your team can be your workplace, your team can be the team you play sports with, your team can be whatever you want. But if you're playing your individual role with the idea that the team will benefit from your individual role, and therefore you are recognized for your merit in the team's performance. Because if you look at any sports team, there is a best player. There is always, in every sports team, a best player. And there's always a worst player. But that worst player needs to be there, and they have a role to play. And they wouldn't be the worst player in another team. They're just the worst player in the team they're in. But they're still integral because you need that person in that position, because otherwise the great players can't shine. And as the NBA proves, that you reward people who aren't overly talented in comparison to people like LeBron James or Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, and Shaquille O'Neal. LeBron's the best example. LeBron's a superstar, and the name of the game was give the ball to LeBron. That was it. That was a plan. And everyone was okay with that. But they played their roles, and they all had $100 million a year contracts, because who supplies the ball to LeBron? It doesn't just pop out of the sky. Someone needs to use their own skills and their own merit to get that ball to LeBron. Now, effectively, a game of basketball with LeBron James in it he would have to be tied up in so many ways that he could only perform exactly as well as everyone else, who would equally have to be tied up in smaller ways for the same level of performance. You see where I'm going here? If you're given a reward for something you haven't done, it means nothing to you and you expect more of it. You will expect more reward for less because you're trained to believe that you deserve everything, but not that you need to put in all the effort. And that's mediocrity. And so that you have two options in society. You either run by meritocracy, which means that everybody has a chance to shine. Everybody can get as high as their particular skill set or their particular amount of effort allows. Everyone has equal rights and equal opportunities to do these things. But the outcome will be decided by the people who do them best. And that's important. If the outcome is predetermined, and it's predetermined by a state, because if you have equity in place or DEI in place, someone has to run it, and therefore a socialist state immediately becomes a communist state. Because who runs it? Who does the wealth distribution? The government. That's right. That's how all socialist, all communist governments have had DEI and equity as part of the backbone. It's a huge part of Marx's writing. And I'm sorry, but that guy didn't know anything about life. He never made a penny from his writing, and he never needed to because he had a very wealthy family. And he would go to these dinners where he could talk about a world that had no money in it because he never had to earn any for his own survival. But the real world doesn't work like that. You have to have merit. And you have to use your skills if you want to be satisfied in life. The worst thing you can do is have an untapped skill that you know you're good at, like an artistic one. Everyone has an artistic skill. There are about 50 different artistic things. And you can look at anything. Building, furniture making. You've got cooking is an extremely artistic thing people don't associate as art. You can associate as art anything that you can do differently than anybody else. Anything that you can make that's unique is considered art, in my opinion. And then under that, guys, my psychological experience, my experience working with clients is everyone has something. It's easy if it's singing or playing an instrument or writing or drawing or painting, these are obvious things. But it could be, that you're a very good philosopher and that the work you could produce is actually very thought-provoking, and that makes you interesting. That's your merit. That's your giving to the world. By the way, I can make shadows with my hands just to clear that up. I'm a shadow man. But if we don't have meritocracy, we only have mediocrity. The other example is a tall guy can see over a fence. Now, another guy can see over that fence who's shorter, but he has to grab a crate. And another guy shorter than him can still see over that fence, but he has to grab 2 crates. And an even shorter guy has to grab 4 crates. Now that's a meritocracy, and that's equality. And everyone gets to see over the fence, but the people who aren't as tall, because the fence is a physical thing and height is a physical thing, are going to have to use their initiative and their advantage to see over the fence. In a world of equity, the fence is cut down so that the smallest person can see over it, and the tallest person is barely at his knees. So those are 2 examples of how equity doesn't work, and I've given enough examples of how meritocracy means purpose and drive and meaning, and mediocrity is an equitable distribution of everything. So someone who works 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, should end up with the same take-home pay as somebody who eats junk food for all week and hasn't worked at all. It doesn't work as a system, and it cannot work as democracy. And the US, and especially Kamala Harris, they've been trying to push it. It's not working. And the DEI, the whole idea needs to be reined back in, because equity will destroy the Western world if we allow it. And it will do so slowly at first and then instantly as soon as they get control. That's how socialist and communist policies work. They are slow moving until they're instant, and then suddenly you've lost all the power, and the people who really believed in them in history have been slaughtered. But in reality now today are completely disillusioned because they thought they were socialists, and now all of a sudden they're communists, and the whole system of their life has changed because they believed in a lie. So I'll leave it there. Think about what I've said, because if you want a world with DEI, you have to accept a world where everyone can set the record for the 100 meters. They just don't have to run the whole thing. Or the best people win the race. Up to you. I'll leave it there. You be lucky, I'll be good.